When I first branched out of a purely medical approach to MEM1 and into the alternative health sphere, I just had no idea where to start with complementary therapy because there were so many on offer. I didn't have guidance on what was going to work. I didn't have experience to make sure that I was choosing the right thing. That is why I've invited on today Anna, a Reiki Master and complementary therapy practitioner, also an old friend of mine who I know is so knowledgeable about this field. She helps explain to me how I know that I am choosing the right therapy for me, whether it's acupuncture, acupressure, massage therapy, aromatherapy. She explains from her own personal journey why these complementary therapies are so important, including how she managed to put into remission a chronic illness that she experienced at a very young and tender age that was robbing life away from her. Anna also offers tips and guidance on how to avoid some of the most common traps that we fall into when we're choosing complementary therapies. And these are the traps that the social media world does not want you to know about. I found this episode so enjoyable to record, and I hope that you enjoy listening back to it too. Anna, you've delved really far into complementary therapy. How have those helped you personally in your journey so far?
I think complementary therapies in general have ways to interact with ourself and looking at the self holistically that we might not get from more traditional Western medicine. My journey started quite young. I was 12, and this was back in my hometown in Italy. And I just got ill, and it was a very long illness. I was unwell for a year. It was a bit unclear what exactly was going on. I tried a lot of different things. Nothing really seemed to make a difference. And I was very lucky to have quite open-minded parents and they took me to an acupuncturist, a lovely Chinese lady in Rome. And that was my very first interaction with complementary therapies. I didn't know much about them. And I just knew it involved needles and that was it. But that was really quite important in my journey. Those sessions were the thing that helped me get better. I had some issues and things that was affecting my health at a very deep level. I had to retake a year of school. I couldn't have a normal 12-year-old life. The thing that started to make a difference was acupuncture. So it just completely blew my mind. It just opened my mind to things that are actually really established, like traditional Chinese medicine in other cultures, and the idea that the self is much more than just the physical body, maybe the mind, that's it. There's actually so much more that is going on, practices and healing to actually address the whole self, which is made of multiple parts and they're all interacting. And you can't fix one without impacting on the others. And a lot of the times it's not even about fixing, it's about establishing balance. From there, I started to just gain an interest in yoga. When I was a little bit older, in my 20s, I gained a more active interest in the practices like Reiki, aromatherapy. It took a bit of time to connect to my energy, especially, but I didn't need any more speech marks convincing because that was really something that I felt in my own journey.
I'm going to make a mental note to come back and ask you about those different complementary therapies. You mentioned Reiki,
Mhm.
aromatherapy, acupuncture. I have been asked a lot by people in this my community about these different complementary therapies and whether they'll be good or not. I feel like you would be a much better person to answer that question. So that's what I'll come to in a minute. You mentioned very briefly that when you were 12, you just wanted to fit in and be a normal person. What was that like? I ask this because there are so many MEM1 patients, but I think disease patients generally who look at other people and see normal health and normal life. It's all they want. And it feels so out of their reach. Could you take us through what
Mm.
it was like being that young and not
Mm.
feeling like you were normal, like you could fit in?
In my own experience, that was definitely a very impactful moment because I went from being able to do things such as go to school, the expectation at that age of what your life looks like, to actually not be able to do that. I had to try and reconcile in my mind and my heart what that meant. The whole thing started as something that looks like it would just heal quickly, and then it did, and then I had complications in my hormonal balances and a lot of more deeper levels to it. It's interesting what that can do to your sense of self, value of yourself, and also identity, because suddenly you feel like you're not like the other 12-year-olds. And they have some, things that they're struggling with, and you're choosing makeup. And then there's you just trying to have enough energy to go to school on the day of the exam. There's a lot of difficulty that comes with that. And I am 100% certain that part of what really helped me through the acupuncture was also connecting to my deeper self, where I know that I have my own self-worth, even as a 12-year-old struggling with those circumstances. I think it's hard not to want to have a life that looks like that of everybody else around you. But there is actually so much more that's happening on the deeper level. One element for me was understanding that I didn't know what was happening for someone else. It might look like their life was normal and perfect, but that was probably not the case. Also, appreciating that you are on this earth for a purpose. That's what I believe. And understanding that my journey is going to be different, because everyone's journey is unique and different. And that's why I mentioned balance as well when we were just talking about complementary therapies in general, because that is such a strong concept, especially in Reiki, but in any practice that recognizes energy and the energy flow. The point of it is, what does it mean for it to be healthy? Because it's innate, it's a life force within us. It's healthy by default. And the main thing that you can do is to make it flow, to make it be balanced within yourself and across your systems. And balance is not objective, it's subjective. It's whatever feels right within you. So it's pointless to wish you had the balance of somebody else, because you have to find your own. And there are people who might have clinical health but may still struggle to achieve that balance. For me, that's just the most important factor of it.
Let's go in a little bit on Reiki because of the complementary therapies that you practice, it's the one I'm more familiar with. Man, you talk about Reiki as though it's a thing. Can it be translated? Is there a word in English that we have for Reiki?
Reiki is a Japanese word. It's a Japanese practice. What it means is universal vital energy. There are so many possible translations of it, but that's the most widely acknowledged one. And in itself, it's a well-established practice that engages with energy. And the energy part in the word Reiki is ki. If we think about, for example, Chinese medicine, then you have the word qi. They are fairly similar, and people have compared ki to prana. It's something that exists in different traditions and different healing practices. So that's why sometimes you can hear the word Reiki used to refer to the energy, sometimes to the practice. It's this understanding of a life force that exists within us and in the universe. So it's inside, but it's also outside, and it's all one. The idea is that this exists in every living thing. If you then look into Japanese or Chinese system, it goes into a lot of details down to the single meridian that carries this type of energy. It can get very detailed, and there's a reason why there are full degrees in Chinese medicine. Reiki makes use of that understanding and establishment to date the energy of the person who's receiving it. The idea is to connect that person's energy to the energy of the universe, allow it to flow within them, and create a self-efficient flow. It's one of the things that I think Reiki has in common with other complementary therapies. It's not about putting something alien into your body, but it's actually about encouraging a movement of something that's already there. It's a self-healing practice. The other thing that I really like about it is that The role of the practitioner or the Reiki master is not to give you their energy, which sometimes it's a misconception around Reiki, but is actually only to be a means of transmission of the energy of the universe. So to activate your own. So it's a very empowering practicing because it's actually about encouraging your own energy, your own life's force to flow and to go where it's needed to unblock whatever physical, emotional, or spiritual stagnation may be happening.
You mentioned back at the beginning that we're much more than just this body and this mind. We can't see our thoughts or our emotions, but we feel them and we think our thoughts, and we know that the brain is there. We know that the body is there. So when you talk about energy and it's something that we can't see, it's something that we can't touch, it's something that we can't prove per se. How did you come to reconcile that with your own understanding, medicine or health being a very scientific thing? I ask this because I've gone through the same journey and I want to find out how you found it.
It's very interesting how, when we say the word scientific, we think of a very specific set of recognition rules and scientific method. I reached that point where I felt like there was a lot more that was going on in my body to start with, but also in the things around me. And it was actually quite helpful for me to find practices and systems that acknowledge that presence. If you're someone who is drawn to it and to an understanding that can be a bit more holistic, then something will resonate. It can be through yoga, or in my case, at the very beginning, acupuncture, later on, Reiki. And once that resonates and you start to have personal experiences of a certain practice working for you, I didn't think it even matters that much whether you can prove it or not. Who are you proving it to? If something is helping, then surely it's worth pursuing. Because of my experience, I had that very real outcome with improving my health, my physical health, with acupuncture, and getting from the place of I cannot even go to school to actually I'm attending, I'm having good results. I definitely had that element of, okay, I know there is something here, and I know it's something that's really impacting on my physical health as well as everything else. I want to find out more. I think this reconciliation that you mentioned can come from different places, but I would say if there is any sort of instincts or intuition towards something, whether it's just something that you find relaxing, even if you can only justify in your brain to the extent of, oh, smelling some nice aromas is relaxing to me and it helps me to forget about my worries. That is an act of healing in itself because you're letting go of stress. You're getting your body in a rest mode. And there is so much value to that. I think everyone should take it in their own time, but there's no single way to reconcile your rational parts and then the energetic. You can allow yourself to feel something without having to overthink or overanalyze it. I say that as someone who is always overthinking and analyzing things. I had to reconcile that very rational intellectual part of my brain to something that's more feeling based. But it doesn't mean that it's less valuable because of that.
What a beautiful way of expressing it. I put my hand up here and say I'm also a chronic overthinker, to the point at which I believe that a lot of the quality of thoughts that I am spending time ruminating over in my head have to in some way contribute to the dis-ease in my body, the state of unease, the stress. That's a word that you mentioned. I have noticed through my own self-awareness practices, yoga being the main one, but also meditation, somatic practices as well, journaling, I absolutely love. I have noticed in all of those that my default state is to feel unsafe somehow in my
Mm.
body. And I know that has to do with the amount of time I spend ruminating over outcomes that haven't happened and blowing things often into worst case scenarios. And I've gone through my own modalities to help me with that. I am not so familiar with acupuncture, with aromatherapy. I wondered if you could explain how those practices work to help people shift into a state of safety, or at least
Mhm.
into feeling as though they're safe in their body, because otherwise, from my experience, disease thrives.
You're definitely not alone in that. And it's something that we all have to work on a daily basis. In terms of aromatherapy, which is something I do practice, and I think it's one of the most immediate practices. Part of that has to do with more scientific element of it because it works with scent and it works with the senses. It's something has a very direct impact on the nervous system. Scent is one of the most instant, immediate senses that we have. So when you smell something, you're going to have an instant reaction to it. It's also the same nervous connection of emotional memory. So that's why there are things that we may smell and they might bring us right back into something that's happened in the past. And this can be for the better or for the worse, with different types of memories. So there is that element of the purely nervous system activation, what it does to your nerves to actually physically calm them down, get you away from that state of fear and flight or fight mode, and actually get you back into a state where you can rest, you can feel safe, and which means all of your systems don't have to be on guard and ready to jump at the next second. You can actually heal in that state, in that restful state. This element of aromatherapy, well, smelling something will have an effect on your nervous system. And that's why I say it's the most immediate one, because sometimes we might not be ready for meditation. We might struggle to get journaling right. There are so many things that can happen if our mind is really in not a very relaxing place. But with smelling, it very quickly goes through your nervous system, and taking deep breaths by itself, it's something that can bring you back into a restful mode. But if you're also taking breaths with specific aromas that are connected to plants and plants properties, because that's what aromatherapy is about, using plants properties via essential oils to have certain effects on your being. You're feeling very stressed, you're feeling very much up in your head, you've got to relax. But if you can't necessarily get yourself to relax by yourself that easily, then aromatherapy could come in and just very quickly completely change your state of mind, which is absolutely amazing. Aromatherapy and massage do connect because it's one of the most comprehensive ways for you to actually receive the essential oils into your skin. There are so many ways in which aromatherapy can be used outside of the massage setting. It's something you can do for yourself. Whether you can get an oil burner and then add your essential oils to it. There are diffusers around. Nowadays, rollers are quite popular as well, which is lovely to see because it's the kind of thing that you can do when you're traveling, when you're commuting, when you're feeling like you need to relax now, but you don't know how. And it's also something that you can keep on your desk. It doesn't require a lot of attention, but it will have that restful, relaxing effects. I completely believe that the bigger amount of hours a day you can spend in that restful mode, the most healing yourself can achieve. It's really hard to heal from something if you're actually having to run away or feel like you're in a state of panic. I hope that answers the question. I know that when I start to talk about these things, I always get very enthusiastic.
Love your enthusiasm and your passion. And I think anyone else listening back can also sense how much you love this and how much it's worked for you, which is why you can speak about it with such conviction. As you were talking about the combination of massage with aromatherapy, I was thinking about my massage, which I've got booked straight after this podcast. And I was like, I wonder if I'm going to have 5 minutes when I can ask Anna for her take on which oils I should be using. Is a way of working out which oils are better for me or not so good for me? Or is it a case of like they can all work for everyone in the same way?
That's a really good question, and it's one of my main passions about aromatherapy personalized element, because you know how we were talking about everyone having their own journey in whatever sense, on whatever level. And especially if you think about that element of memory as well, then it starts to become quite clear that different scents are going to have different effects on different people. I think the main value of aromatherapy, the most benefits, is when you actually are using something that works for you. There are different ways to find it out. What I personally do in my practice is that I like to carry out a fairly thorough consultation. And this involves talking about lots of things. Some have to do with your physical health, some have to do with your intuition and instincts. One part of my consultation is what smells do you like? Because it's so important to also trust your own instincts. There are also different properties that are within the different plants that are used. If we think about, for example, lavender and eucalyptus, they're both very good, but they're good for different things and they're quite different oils. Lavender is a much more relaxing, calming one. Eucalyptus is more activating, energizing oil. A lot of it will depend on what you need and what are the properties. Your personal history is going to also inform what is the blend that can work for you. Good oils are also best when they're blended together. It's something that I think people can go out and explore, and you can do a at home smell test where you just smell different things and you see the one you're drawn to. But to do that, you have to be as aware of your intuition as possible and just be very trusty. Whereas I find it's often quite helpful for someone to have someone who has some knowledge of it, who is an aromatherapist, and then they can actually guide you through that process and identify what are the things that work for you.
You mentioned such an important word for me in my journey, which is intuition. And it's not always the easiest thing to grapple with because, as we've spoken about so far in this conversation, it's not tangible, it's not provable in as much as those words mean what we've been taught they mean. When you've had to trust your intuition in any part of your health journey, whether it was right back at the beginning at diagnosis, or whether it's been further down the line, or whether it's knowing which essential oil blend to recommend to a patient, how do you trust that? How do you know that this is the right thing to do? And does your mind ever come in and say, oh, actually, maybe this isn't right? Is there a kind of battle of inner knowing and then mental logic ever in your experience?
Sometimes you get this sense of intuition, this drawing towards something. You can call it your gut instincts or a vibe. We have so many vague words for them because everybody feels it in one way or another. But it's true that a lot of the times you also have this voice in your mind just trying to overthink. And it comes from a place of stress. And it will ask you, oh, but are you sure? Oh, but how are you sure that it's not that instead? And what I think the key there is that intuition doesn't happen in the mind. If that starts to be a problem where you're actually not sure what you want to do and it starts to actually stop you from doing something or following what you feel might be right, then the practices that help me to bring my awareness away from my thinking mind and into my essence, into my energetic self. There are different ways to do that. You mentioned yoga, meditation, journaling. Those are all super valuable. For me, it's Reiki. It's got to be Reiki, which to me is also a way of life. The origins of it are from a Zen Buddhist philosophy point of view. It's also about presence, trying to be present in the present. From there, really, you find that it's much harder to feel a sense of worry because worrying is often about the future or the past. It's rarely anchored in the present. And that's one way to try and bring things back to that point where you have this gut instinct. You feel something, you're drawn to something, your mind tries to speak up. do whatever practice can bring you back to that essence, bring you back there. I think the more regularly you try to do this with any choice of your life, and it can be on the superficial level of, do I want to have a snack now or later? Do I want to wear this thing or that thing? And then it can also be on the deeper life choices that you want to make. It's also about anything that has to do with your health, and should I go for this practice? Should I go for that treatment? The more you can get yourself in the habit of letting go of the mind and actually focusing on that essence, on that very deep awareness of what you feel is right. You don't have to think that it's right, but you may feel it. And then the more often you do that, the more your trust builds up and the easier it becomes. Something within Reiki that I find really helpful are the precepts. These are just sets of indications of how to lead your life. It starts with, for today only, do not anger, do not worry, be humble, be honest in your work, be compassionate to yourself and others. These are the precepts in Reiki. But for today only, to me, is often the most important one. Because if you bring that awareness into the present and you actually can exist today, right now, you don't have to think whether this will be right in 50 years. It's today, it's right now. It's not about yesterday, it's not about what's going to come in 5 seconds. It's literally this one moment now. And from there, anger, worry, stress, uncertainty, they all melt away once you find that moment. And that's where your intuition will actually speak louder than your mind and your doubts. It's not an easy thing, but there are different tools that can help you along it.
It's not an easy thing, you're right, but it is simple. And I've learnt the difference in however many years I've been doing this between those two adjectives, simple and easy. They're very different things. I believe, particularly in a world of today where there's so much online marketing and in an amazing way, so much available now through the internet, through social media, but this assumption that things just happen like that we get results like that we take a supplement and that fixes the problem, or we go for one massage or one acupuncture session and that fixes the problem. Personally, I've really learned the value of patience. And in order to be patient, I have to be present, because the part of me that is taking my attention away from the present moment is the part of me that's worrying about what's going to happen in
Mm-hmm.
the future or what happened in the past. I'm really grateful that you've brought that into the conversation. I mentioned safety earlier, and you talked about how scent is so powerful because it really does have an instantaneous effect. And I was thinking about scents that I associate with people, particularly people that I
Mm-hmm.
love and people I spend a lot of time around, my friends, my family, particularly my grandmother had a very, very distinctive scent. And whenever I reflect back on her and the time I spent with her, I remember feeling safe, and it makes me feel safe now. I'm thinking out loud here about how important it is to find anchors that help
Mm-hmm.
me feel present in the moment. And even if it's associated with a memory from the past, that emotion that came from that memory is something that I can still feel now. And so often, and I know this from my personal experience, I've looked to others to make me feel safe. I've looked outwards always
Mm-hmm.
to pacify my uncertainty. But it sounds as though you have found a number of practices that help bring you into a state of presence, into a state of safety, connected with your intuition. It made me want to ask, for anyone who's listening back who is not familiar with any of the practices we've mentioned, acupressure, acupuncture, massage therapy, Reiki, and they feel like they just don't know where to start, what would be the first step for them that you would recommend?
When there is that desire of, yes, I know I want to try and feel safe, feel relaxed. I know I can improve on that. I want to reach out. That's the first step. And that's already such an amazing thing for someone to want to do. So that's really number one, to be like, okay, I want to look something that can help me. In terms of where to take it from there, I think It depends a little bit on your intuition, but also just what do you like. You don't have to follow a practice if you already know that you might feel uncomfortable. So, for example, Reiki is a fully clothed treatment. That's something that some people look at and they are quite drawn to it because they know they don't love the idea of just undressing for a massage with someone. There are all these elements that you can consider when you're looking for something. On the other hand, if you have done massage before and you know you like it, then you might try to take it forward with an aromatherapy massage that incorporates those elements within something that you already know, that you're familiar with. I know for myself and for all of the therapists that I know, you can always talk about any adjustments to make it comfortable and suited for you. In my personal and professional experience so far, the one treatment that I really love and that I think is really, really valuable for someone who's just trying to look out into this world and of complementary therapies is that aromatherapy massage because it's a very relaxing, low pressure massage. And if you're someone who's comfortable with massage, then that's something that can really quickly and safely get you in that relaxed spa mode experience. And then from there, you have the aromatherapy elements that can work at a deeper level. And that also has that immediate reaction of safety, calm, peace. What I like to do is at the end of it to include a bit of Reiki. So going into this deeper energetic level, but from a point of safety, from a point of calm. For someone who's new to these things, you don't want to necessarily jump into a very powerful spiritual experience if you've never done anything like that before and you don't know what's happening. You want to be aware of what's happening. You want your practitioner to to keep you informed. Consultations are very important. They're there for a reason and they work both ways. Then it's also finding the place where you can feel like you can trust what's happening. And sometimes I get people who come for a massage, but they then say, hey, I've come to you because I've seen you do Reiki as well, and I find the Reiki people relaxing. I think that it's such a lovely thing because there is an element of energy in anything we do, anything I do for sure. Find something online, call them, have a conversation, see if the vibe, the energy is right. And then also don't be afraid to try something. And if in the moment you don't feel as safe as you want to, tell them, because that's the other thing. You can feel very empowered in those experiences. You're not just there and something is being done on you at all, especially with Reiki. Everything that I've been talking about, it's an interaction of energy. It's a self-healing moment. So it's really about you. I feel sometimes people are a bit shy to say or to talk about. I think you can just let go of any sense of embarrassment in that way because those experiences are really for you.
It will maybe want to jump in and share an experience I've had. I go for regular Thai massages and they are absolutely superb. I love them to pieces, but it's amazing that when I went for my first few, the pressure was so strong. I didn't even realize I could say, can you lessen the pressure a little bit? Because in my health journey, I was so used to gritting my teeth through pain and to having such a high level of pain tolerance that I just thought that was normal. And it wasn't until a therapist said to me to relax. And I was like, I think I am relaxing. I think that's what I'm doing. And what she said was she could feel me holding so much tension in my body and actually tensing my muscles against her massage. And that became a metaphor basically for the way that I move through life, which is to grit my teeth and push through. So I'm very grateful to what we know as alternative therapies or complementary therapies because they show me how I'm showing up in my life in ways that no blood test, no scan, no consultation with a medical doctor ever could. And thank you for bringing this up because I think it's so important that patients do feel safe and that they know that they can interact and collaborate.
Absolutely. It's your own healing journey. It's your own energy. So there's no reason why you should feel like you can't say something or there's a certain way you're supposed to feel. Everybody reacts different to the practices. And that's the point of it. The point is that it looks at you holistically rather than clinical treatments where that's not taken into account at all.
Yeah. Anna, there's one more question I wanted to ask you because you've come on this podcast with personal experience as a patient, but also practitioner experience, which I think is some ways in this podcast anyway, is like an absolute double gem. What is one thing that you would tell to yourself at an earlier stage in your health journey? Maybe it was when you first had those health problems when you were 12. Maybe it was later down the line when you started finding alternative and complementary therapies that may resonate with the audience today.
There is often a sense of resistance, I find, within yourself to follow what you know is going to be good for you. It links back to that idea of intuition, but also to maybe something that's social conditioning about the idea that well-being is a luxury. Ooh, today I'll treat myself to this. And actually, it's not a treat. It doesn't have to be a treat. It doesn't have to be a luxury. If there's something that helps you and it helps you on your well-being, in your health, in your minds, in your heart, wherever it can be, then it's at your disposal and you're 100% worth reaping those practices and the benefits that they give to you. You didn't have to wait until you really need it to actually engage with something that you know is helpful. You can maintain a state of calm and peace and well-being and balance every day. You can give yourself this luxury in speech marks every day. You don't have to wait to be in absolute need of something now, otherwise you're going to be completely overwhelmed. Times that's the conditioning we have until it's absolutely necessary and you need to take a break from work, then what's the point of looking after yourself holistically? And something I would say to myself throughout my journey, sometimes even today, is don't wait for that moment to come. Prevent it. Work with yourself to build up a well-being maintenance and because you're worth it and you deserve it. And those are really difficult things to internalize sometimes, especially for women, especially if you've gone through difficult physical health experiences, but they are so profound and being able to really unroot those doubts can be super, super powerful. If in doubt, if there's something that you want to try, there's this treatment that you see and you're like, oh, I don't know if I should go for it, go for it. Trick your mind before you even can self-doubt that. Just do it. Do things that are nice to yourself because it can be so helpful.
I love that. And I am going to feel no guilt whatsoever when I pay for my Thai massage tonight, nor when I book in the one for 2 weeks' time or 2 weeks after that. Anna, it has been such a joy to chat to you today. My face is lit up, I know, because you can see it in the camera. And I really believe that there'll be so many people listening today who feel some sense of validation or liberation, or empowerment, inspiration, maybe from something that you've shared. You are a gold mine of knowledge and wisdom. You express yourself beautifully. And even though I have not yet come to try one of your therapies, I will be knocking on your door very soon because I feel as though you have such a gift to share. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I know my audience does too.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. Honestly, what you're doing with this podcast is absolutely amazing. And to be a part of it is such a beautiful, valuable experience. So thank you.
Complementary therapies have been so important in my MEM1 journey, particularly in helping me put certain symptoms into remission. I really hope that you found this episode engaging, enjoyable, and that you now walk away with more confidence when navigating the world of alternative health. If you'd like to find out more about Anna's work, check out her details in the description box below or wherever you're listening to this podcast episode. And if you'd like to join a community of engaged, proactive, and curious, like-minded MEM1 patients, find the link below and join the MEM1 podcast community so that you do not miss the next valuable episode that drops into your inbox.